Today, we are going to be going over how to quickly pause things using bulk files in your Amazon advertising account. So, here's the scenario. You probably have maybe a list of ASINs or potentially a list of campaigns, or there's something in your ad account that you would want to pause. Now, I'll probably briefly touch on how to analyze to find things that you want to pause in an account, but probably the best workflow for this is going to be I have something that I must do in my account. Maybe you have a particular ASIN that's going out of stock and you want to pause it across your entire advertising account. How do you find it? And more importantly, how do you pause it quickly if there could be in a ton of different campaigns? Or maybe you have a whole bunch of campaigns and you want to be able to sort and filter and find them and briefly pause them. And where bulk files can be very helpful in this sort of workflow, because to be honest, filtering for a list of campaigns with a specific name in them and then pausing them is relatively easy inside of the ad console. However, what happens when you know that you want to enable those campaigns later on down the road? Maybe you have a list of campaigns and you have specified a specific ASIN or a specific SKU in the naming structure. And so you can say, okay, so these campaigns apply to this ASIN, and so therefore I will go in and pause them. But what if some of those campaigns you paused before because they had poor performance with them? Well, that creates an issue because when you go to re-enable them, you're like, wait a minute, I'm not really sure. Like, I know I paused some of these a little while ago, and I don't want to enable the campaigns that I've paused with poor performance. So maybe you look at like what previously had impression. The workflow is very, very clunky. However, if you are pausing things through bulk files, you're actually easily creating a record for yourself of the things that you paused. And I'm going to show you that workflow and how not only can you enact the changes, but my recommendations in terms of keeping a record for yourself. So later on, when you want to go enable things, it's going to take you 2 minutes, where if you were going and doing them manually, it could take you hours. All right, so let's dig into it. The first thing that I'm going to go over is how to find and download a bulk file. Then I'm going to I'm going to walk you through the actual bulk file, and then I'm going to go through what I just told you about keeping a record for yourself and how the workflow can be quite easy if, for example, the product comes back into stock. Okay. So you want to go into your ad account and you're going to click this button open here, and then you're going to select bulk operations. Once you're there, you're going to be taken to this screen and you'll want to download a bulk file. Now there's 2 things you need to figure out when you are, again, downloading your file. The one is the date range that you want to select. So if you're doing any sort of analysis on performance metrics, maybe you're going through and saying, okay, so where are all of my keywords that are underperforming? I want to pause those. Or maybe you have a bunch of ASINs and you want to evaluate the performance of them to, again, potentially pause some of those within your campaigns. Well, you would want to make sure that you select a long enough date range that you're going to have enough data to be able to evaluate. So by default, this is going to be yesterday's data. However, 1 day of data is probably not enough for you to be able to really evaluate if something is or isn't performing. I recommend default is probably about a 30-day period. Now, you also want to check campaign items with 0 impressions. If this is left unchecked, then any items, be keywords, products, etc., that have not received an impression within whatever date range that you specify, which is in the last 30 days, then those are going to not be contained in your bulk file. You might want to be aware of those in your account. Now, you can uncheck everything. So I would uncheck placements, data, guide for sponsored products, sponsored product search terms, sponsored brand search terms. This just makes the file a lot smaller, which can be helpful, one, in just how long it takes to generate the file, because Amazon has to pull all that information and put it into a spreadsheet for you. And then also when you open it up on your computer, it's going to process a little bit easier because you're not going to have as much data. So the things that I would recommend is, again, you want to check this so you have those items contained in the file. And then you probably want to be looking at your sponsored product ads, sponsored brand ads, if they have multiple ad groups, those will show up in a different tab, and also your sponsored display data. If, for example, I was only going through and I just wanted to evaluate things in my sponsored product ads, then you can also select or deselect these other ad types. And when you click create spreadsheet for download, it's only going to be for sponsored product ads. There's nothing wrong with leaving them in there. Just recognize, again, your file is going to be larger and it will take a little bit longer to process. That's all. But once you've selected your date range and you select what you want in your bulk file, you'll click create for download and it will start processing down here. Once it is available for download, you will see this icon that you can click, and then that will download the file to your computer, and then you can open it up. So I'm opening it up just for clarity purposes. I am opening this up inside of Google Sheets. You can use Google Sheets, Excel, or honestly, whatever spreadsheet software you prefer. All right, I'm going to be going through what this is going to look like inside of sponsored product ads. So here we have a full bulk file here. And as you can see, there is a lot of rows. There's a lot of data in here. And so I'm going to quickly breeze through some things. And I do have a more detailed explanation on this particular tab right here, which is the entity column. And this is the one, if you are unfamiliar with bulk files, this is the column to get the most familiar with. So briefly, what a bulk file is, because I guess throughout this, I've assumed you know what it is. It is a way to analyze and also make changes to your account using spreadsheets. And I like to think of it as a three-dimensional account inside of a two-dimensional view of a spreadsheet. So for example, when you're inside Campaign Manager, and we're giving the example of campaigns, right? You can see all of your campaigns. Well, here in this entity column, all of the information on the campaign level, so things like campaign ID, portfolio ID, the campaign name, which you'll note that a lot of this has been I've renamed stuff so I can still use the file, but it's not going to share any client information. So things like, okay, what is the campaign named? And then I have things like, okay, so what targeting type is it? This is an auto campaign. When did it start? State enabled. We will come back to it because this is what you're going to be changing if you want to pause things. Also some campaign states. What is my budget? All the information that is stored at the campaign level. So dynamic bids down only. You will also have these informational columns. So you get things like impressions, clicks, your click-through rate, spend, sales, orders, all of the information that I told you you want to select a specific date range for. So this data right here is going to be for the last 30 days because I selected the 30 days. And what this information is going to be for, I will show you right here. So here we have the entity, which is the campaign. And then on this row here, these impressions would be how many total impressions I got for the entire campaign. All the clicks I got through the entire campaign, the average click-through rate of the entire campaign, ACoS for the entire campaign. You go over here. So bidding adjustment is your placement percentages. So again, if I looked at the performance metrics on these rows, it would say this is the performance data. One of them is top of search, rest of search, and product pages. You can also see if there's negative. So in this case, we have a negative keyword, the ad group. So you can see data of the ad group. And where this is very helpful, as you can see, is I'm quickly filtering down through everything. And you also can create filters. So for example, if I wanted to look at all of my information on all of my ad groups, I could filter this entity column, condense it to all of my ad groups, and then go through here and start sorting and filtering. Maybe I want to say, oh, which ad group has the greatest impressions? Or maybe which ad group has the greatest ACoS? Because maybe I have multiple ad groups in my campaigns. And so it's hard to click into each campaign, evaluate all the ad groups. If you just wanted to quickly zero in onto which ad group you probably need to go in and optimize, you can do that very quickly here if you're not doing something like using one campaign, one ad group structures, which is our preferred method because it's a lot easier to see true performance at the overall account management level. But I digress. Okay, so now that we explained the entity column, which again, I have a much more extensive video on the entity column, which I'm going to link, which I believe you would find helpful. If you really want to get into bulk files, recommend watching that video. However, how do we pause things inside of our ad account using a bulk file? Let me tell you what, it is very easy. there's 2 steps. Well, 2 things you need to input into your sheet or change, and then 1 extra step, which is uploading of the file, which you will always have that as an extra step if you're using a bulk file to make changes to your account. All right. All we will have to do to make a change, say, for example, I wanted to pause this campaign. I would go over to the state column. So the state just says, is this active in my account? Enabled is yes, this is active. Paused, no, this is inactive. So you can see here that we have several pause things, which are products that are being advertised. So we have paused some of these SKUs in our ad group because due to performance, they weren't working as well. So we went through and we paused them. Here you can see the state of this campaign is enabled. So it is active. And because of that, we can pause it, or you can also, which I'm going to show you in like the further workflows, you can actually enable things that were previously paused. If, for example, we go through this, we pause a bunch of things, and then maybe we pause something we didn't mean to, or again, product comes back in stock, we're looking to push the product again, we want to retest that keyword, we can go through and we can re-enable them through a bulk file. All right, so all you have to do here, got 2 things. You're going to put state here. We don't want it enabled. We want it to be paused. So all you're going to have to do is put paused in the state column. And then the other thing that you will have to do is in the operations column, which again, if you want a full walkthrough on the operations column, because this is the thing, if you're used to the old version of bulk files, operations column is probably the main thing that's going to trip you up because it was kind of the biggest update to the sheet. And so under operations, we have to specify we want to happen. And there's 2 operations you will typically use when using bulk files. One of them is update, which is what we are going to put here. Update is the operation that says, hey, Amazon, I want you to change something about this entity, which is in this case is the campaign. So update is the operation that you use when you want to make changes to something that currently exists in your ad account. The second operation would be create, but that you only use if you are like creating something that is not currently in your ad account. And that's all you have to do. And you can do this, again, you can do this on a campaign level. If, for example, I wanted to look at all of my products. So here we have product ad, which is all of our SKUs that we are advertising. Maybe we want to look for all of our SKUs, and I would recommend going into the state column and probably unchecking paused here. So this is going to see all the enabled products in my ad account. And then I would probably want to go through and maybe check the performance of some of these. So maybe I'm looking at ACoS. So this is an 18% ACoS. This one has 119% ACoS. And this one has a 200% ACoS. Now you do want to check your structure and make sure you're not completely like you have other products that are being advertised in these campaigns. But potentially I would want to go through and I would want to pause these. So again, these are enabled. All I have to do is put paused here, and then I would put update date in the operations column, and I can then upload this file back in that section of bulk files in my ad account in the ad console, and then those would be paused in my account. So again, if you have a bunch of products that you would like to pause, the easiest way is probably going to be filtering here. So you can see the SKU, or there's the ASINs here. So you could filter, say I wanted to look at it was my SKU 1. I could say, okay, this is where everything that is active in my current account, and I would want to put pause here, and then I could put update in the operations column, upload this, and then all of the SKUs would be paused across my entire account. And again, this is for sponsored product ads. Sponsored brand ads, you can't technically pause individual products. It doesn't work like that. So that workflow wouldn't work, but you can use this exact same workflow instead of sponsored display ads. The columns, etc., are basically virtually the same. At least the column names are the same. Okay, now I want to show you a workflow of what if I want to keep a record of things that I've done to be able to look at it later. Okay, so here is the biggest tip for you is being able to keep a record. Because remember when I said that sometimes you can pause things inside the ad console and be like, wait, did I pause that because it was poor performance? Maybe the SKU has been paused in other ad groups. So for example, you can see that this one has been paused in some of our other campaigns, and maybe it was paused there due to poor performance. So we don't want to go through our account looking for all of the places where this product has been paused and accidentally re-enable some places where it was performing negatively, because it's really difficult. Like, you can't take notes within your ad console, and that is where bulk files come in. So what I would do is I would, again, look at only the stuff that is enabled. And what you can do is I would copy just these rows. My preference, now you saw me just make some changes inside of this file. I said pause and I put update in the operations column. I actually would not recommend that. My recommendation is going to be keeping the original download exactly the same. Why? That's because that will actually act as a record of the state of your account or the settings that you had when you actually downloaded the file, which can be very helpful. So what I would do is again, we're copying this, and I'm going to open up a brand new spreadsheet within my account, and I'm going to paste it here. And I'm still going to do that exact same thing. I'm going to put paused here, and then I'm going to copy it down, and then I'm going to put operations update, and then I can just copy this down the list. But now what I have is a record. And also, another pro tip on your naming structures, I always recommend going through, copying the original name of, again, this sheet that we're kind of leaving untouched for our records. And then I'm going to go back over to my other sheet. I'm going to paste that in here. And then what I'm going to do is I create like a parentheses, or if you want to use like colon or like some sort of, kind of demarcation between the original sheet name. And then I would just say paused out of stock SKU 1. And then I would probably also want to put the date, which today is the 19th. And what this allows us to do is then go into our file structure somewhere, and we know that this is the original name of the file where we copy and pasted from. So when I go through and I search that original name, it's going to bring up the original file as well as any files that I've used to sort of piece out the things that I would like to make changes on, which you will probably find very helpful. Other things, and this is just sort of a maybe ease of workflow or separation of the data, if you find that helpful. If I say, for example, was pausing SKU 1 and SKU 2, what I might do is I could go back to my file and say I'm going to filter for SKU 10. And then what I could do is I could copy these rows here. And then when I go back to my other file, I could actually put those in a separate tab if I wanted to separate them. It doesn't really matter. There's two ways you can do this. You can add to your existing file. You want to leave the headers alone, and you do need to make sure that the data is copied over to be exactly in line with the headers, because that is super important. But otherwise, we can add to our data set here. Or if I'm like, I know I'm probably only going to want to make changes to SKU 1 and I want to do something else with SKU 2, that could be an option for you as well. As long as you have those headers, then you should be good. Okay, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to upload this into my account. And then again, everything across all of these ASINs is going to be paused. Now, remember I said that keeping a record can be very helpful. And what if we want to go through and this product comes back into stock, so we need to re-enable them? All you would have to do is go in here, and I recommend making a copy of this. So again, you can keep this original, or you can just make changes to this existing file. It is up to you. But all I would have to do is in the state column, I would just put enabled here, drag enabled down. I already have update in my operations column, so that's good. I can upload this, and then all of those items would become enabled in my account, which can be very, very helpful. And again, I gave you a demonstration of what it looks like if we're filtering for a particular product ad, which you might find helpful. But again, if I wanted to do this on an entire campaign level, what I could do is I could go over to this campaign name. And here we have campaign 1. Maybe I'm looking for the number 1. So we could select all of these. Again, if you have a good naming system, it would bring up something else. But I could also do the exact same thing to all of these campaigns. All I would have to do is put state paused. I would want to drag down this paused option, and then I would drag down update in the operations column. And again, I would still recommend keeping this sheet untouched and then simply going and then copy and pasting these into a new sheet, which again gives you a very clean record if you want to go back and say re-enable those at a later date. And that's pretty much it. Again, your last thing you'll have to do is go back to the bulk operations in your account. So you're going to go to sponsor ad, bulk operations. You're going to choose this. So upload file to process your campaigns. You will have to download that, that file that you created, upload it here, and you will see that it will start here with your uploads. And under status, ideally it'll say either processing or finished successfully. So here you say successfully processed changes. If you're just straight copying and pasting anything, doing the pause and doing the update or the enabled and update, you shouldn't have any problems with your formatting. If you do run into errors though, I find downloading an error report very, very useful. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions on this, or if you want to know, say like our workflows or how we use this in our agency, feel free to leave a comment down below and we'll make sure to get you a detailed answer. Or if you have any questions on this formatting, again, feel free to leave a comment.